This city serves a noble goal, the redemption of Tamriel, the unification of competing forces, the destruction of the Daedra. Unfortunately, it is an endeavor built upon a lattice of corpses. Betrayal, untold horrors. Do you understand? Good. I pray you never do.
Before this video begins, where have I been? Well, a number of unfortunate events in the uncanny realm known as real life, as well as the fact that I trashed the original script for this video, grinded video production to a halt. But it is my belief that the content drought has passed, and we may now sail on steady waters. The following video you're about to watch is my attempt at killing two birds with one stone, as I have wanted to make a follow-up to my previous ESO video, while also paving the way for some future content.
So be careful if an owl ever perches on your shoulder and sings to you about luck and glory.
You wanna hear something funny? I was gonna make a review on ESO 2023, but as I sat back on my chair, cracked my fingers and began typing the script for that video, something profound happened. As I saw the lines in front of me being filled with shortcomings, unwanted features and community uproar, I realized something profound. I wasn't writing a review, I was writing a eulogy. I don't want to make another 30-minute video bashing the game. That has been done to death. So today, I am trashing the previous script and starting from scratch to make a more positive video by focusing on my favorite addition to the Elder Scrolls lore by ESO, the Clockwork City. Spoiler warning. This video will be examining the additions the Elder Scrolls DLC added to the Elder Scrolls Online, which includes new lore, characters, and areas. Why cover the Clockwork City, you might ask? Because, I reply, the newer areas in the Elder Scrolls Online ring kind of hollow to me, at least story-wise. I really like the Deadlands DLC, but everything else since the Year of the Dragon felt kinda flat to me. High Isle was okay but nothing special, Greymore was so forgettable that I just keep calling it the Skyrim DLC, and Blackwood... oh my god, Blackwood. Blackwood was so bad that I actually remember myself wanting to scream while playing the questline out of both disappointment and boredom. To say that the format of ESO storytelling has become a little bit dull could be described as an understatement. Static character models spamming the same 10 animations from the same camera angle and every dialogue option having the word goodbye in it no matter the context of the dialogue.
You can see that our village has crashed upon some rough rocks. We won't survive much longer without a strong hand to aid us.
Goodbye. Complacency can be described as the mentality with which Zos is developing this game. Copy-pasting the same assets whenever possible so they can get back to making actual custom assets for loot boxes or houses locked behind a $70 paywall. But enough with my opinion. To air my grievances in the most appropriate way possible, I have invited a personal friend and a constant patron of this channel to help me bring things into perspective. So please, everyone, give a round of applause for my dear friend, Dagoth Ur.
Greetings, Nerevar. May I come? Come and look upon your screen. What's this? Disgusting. Another Elder Scrolls Online add-on not worth the code it's written on. Oh please, where does this one take place? Some new unseen realm of oblivion where the developer's original characters can shit all over the lore. Or perhaps an island apparently inhabited by Bretons even though it is a mere 12 miles away from Auridon. I cannot wait for another Bosmeri Twink or Khajiit Thirst Trap to make their appearance. Surely they won't allude to being vaguely aroused by your character. And can you believe it? Dragons in Elsewhere? What deep lore suggested this garbage? My, it looks like ZeniMax even included a new empty field that you can buy for the price of a full game. And don't think the base game is any better. By the Trinity, look how they defiled Skyrim. Only mighty Resdayn was spared the dreaded ire of the developers and given its due justice. Please, Nerevar, stop giving ZeniMax your money and play a real game.
But what if I told you that it wasn't always like this? What if I told you that there was once a time that ESO storytelling was rivaling that of Skyrim's and Oblivion's, while debating our understanding of other games as old as Morrowind? Let me tell you about the best addition to the Elder Scrolls lore we got in the last decade. Let me tell you about the Clockwork City and my personal favorite character in the Elder Scrolls universe, Sothasil, Interception. So I have been debating with myself about how to approach this subject. I usually just cover the story as it is in the timeline and provide relative information as we go along, but that won't work here, for reasons which will become obvious soon enough. So how I'm gonna approach this topic is by initially explaining what we knew about Sothasil and the Clockwork City before the DLC came out, and then I'm gonna explain the events that took place in the Elder Scrolls Online story, and how they changed the way we understand the events that took place in Morrowind. And at the end, I'm also gonna take a little detour to another abandoned Elder Scrolls game to see how the story ultimately ended. Or at least how it seems to have ended by now. Hopefully by showing things in this perspective, my point will come across more easily. And no, my point isn't to bash the game I spent most of lockdown playing. The purpose of this video is to point out something the game did absolutely right story-wise, how it did so, and ask the obvious question, why isn't it doing more of it? Any discussion about the Clockwork City needs to start with its architect. Sothasil was born in a relatively small house in Old Morrowind, which back then it was known as Resdayn, called House Sotha. Back then the Dark Elves weren't cursed with being, the Dark Elves, so they were still known as the Chimera. There are a lot of stories regarding Sothasil's childhood, all of whom basically boil down to he was a very observant and curious person. So I'm not going to tire you with them, because there's quite a few other things worth tiring you with. It is never explained why, but at some point his settlement was destroyed and later on a statue of Moirun's Dagon was raised in its place. So it seems like it was the work of sorcery or maybe occult summonings. During the destruction of his settlement, all members of House Sotha died except Sil, who was saved by none other than Vivek. The two of them at some point became friends with another Chimera known as Endoriel Nervar, who was a warlord, a champion of Azura, and Set became his advisor. To give you context of what time this was for the rest of Tamriel, at the same time as these events were happening, Elysia had just begun making her rebellion that would eventually overthrow the Alien Elves, and the Nords under King Harold were carving themselves an empire that would reach all the way to Morrowind, which they wanted to conquer. As a response to this, the Dwemer and the Chimera formed a council which defeated the Nords.
Until next time.
You won't leave Skyrim alive!
If you remember from my last Elder Scrolls video, I explained that the God of Time got pissed at another god for triggering him to give up his powers and create the world. So much so that he took his heart and shoved it under a mountain. And well, now you know under which mountain it is. The Dwemer and the Chimera then had a falling apart after the Dwemer tried to gain the power of the heart to ascend themselves to immortality, without telling the Chimera first. And in the world that ensued as a product of this falling apart, the Dwemer used a bunch of tools made by a guy named Kagranak to extract the power of the heart. And this is where the fun part begins. Hey, so before I explain the fun part, I just want to reach out and say, most of what I'm about to say is inherently not confirmed by any one source. You see, unlike other fictional franchises, The Elder Scrolls does not have a central, all-knowing narrator, so many of the reports we know are inherently conflicting, lacking, or just outright confusing. That being said, I am like 99% sure that the events I'm going to present right now are as accurate as we can get, and I'm gonna explain the thought process behind them as we go along. So Kagranak tries to use the tools on the heart, and in an instance, all Dwemer disappear. We have no idea exactly why they disappeared, but the most prominent theory is that they became zero-sum. So basically, the entire Elder Scrolls universe is taking place inside the dream of a slumbering god, and realizing and understanding that you live in a dream can lead to you not being able to comprehend your own existence, and therefore ceasing to exist. Alternatively, through this realization, characters in the dream can cultivate a power known as Chim, by understanding that despite their lives being nothing more than the product of a dream, they still exist and are in fact a part of it. Figures with that knowledge can then alter the dream in some ways. The only problem I have with this being the 100% definitive explanation about what happened to the Dwemer is that I haven't been able to correlate how the Heart of Lorkhan and the dream connect. You can argue that gods have a higher understanding of Chim than mortals, but there is very little proof of that from what I've seen. So make of that what you will. Headcanon is best canon. If however one understands the concept of the dream yet comes to perceive themselves as the original dreamer, aka the Godhead, then they become a figure like Dagoth Ur, who is a false dreamer. Now, for the purposes of not getting too off topic, because remember this video is still about Sothasil and the Clockwork City, after the Dwemer disappeared there are a lot of conflicting accounts on what happened, and some even throw the also illustrious word Dragon Break. So let's just take a step back from that, just for our own safety. The events that took place after the Dwemer disappeared probably warrant a video of their own, so in very, very short, the outcomes are as follows. Endoriel Nervar dies, and I'm certain at this point that the people that killed him are Vivek, Sothasil, and Almalexia, after he instructed them not to use the heart to become gods. So naturally, everyone in that chamber proceeded to use the heart of Lorkhan to become gods. Dagoth Ur became the false dreamer and vanished until the events of Test 3 Morrowind, and Vivek, Sothasil, and Almalexia became the 3 new gods of Morrowind. The problem is that Morrowind already had 3 gods, Mafala, Boithia, and the most prominent one, Azura. who appeared before them after they became gods and killed Nerevar, who as you remember was a champion, and basically told them to fuck off. Now, to say that Sothasil had become a little fed up with the Daedra after the destruction of his house and the death of his family in the hands of them would probably be an understatement. So, the otherwise calm and collective Sothasil began to curse Azura and proclaim that the people of Morrowind no longer needed the old gods, as they would now have new gods that can talk to them directly. Azura then gets mad and curses all the Chimera to become the Dark Elves. She also told them that one day she will send an incarnation of Nerevar, the guy they just killed, to kill them. But anyway, that won't come up. Until of course the events of Morrowind, where it did come up. And so, the new three gods now had the option to either maintain their old Chimera forms, which were those of golden skin similar to the High Elves, or they could choose to embrace the new forms of their people and allow their skin to go dark. And out of the three, Sothasil was the only one to completely embrace this change. There are more connotations that have to be made about this whole skin change thing, but all in due time. To be honest, out of the three, it seems like Sothasil was the one who actually loved and cared about the Dunmer the most. For one, he embraced their new form to comfort them and to show them that this change can be a good thing, and he also helped them throughout their struggles with the Empire of Cyrodiil and other incidences regarding Daedric invasions. However, I want to make a note here. The compliment "loved them the most out of the three" doesn't say much when you consider how outright stupid the other two were. Vivek would go on to hang a rock on top of his capital city so that if his people ever stopped loving him, he could just force them into adoration. Which, by the way, the rock fell on them shortly after the events of Test Morrowind, because he never thought that at some point he might lose his powers after the whole Nerevar thing Azura told them about came up again.
Did you notice that I haven't moved Bardau back to its original position? It's in no danger of falling, thanks to you. But as I wrote in the Ballad of Red Mountain, all actions have consequences and pose some risk. Best to leave it alone.
Are you delusional? Do you suffer from a mental illness?
And Almalexia is, well, she's one of the most believably dumb characters I have ever seen in a video game. In time, her divinity and her preservation of her original form drove her almost to self-infatuation, and this drove her to value the image of her divinity above everything else, which is what ultimately doomed the Tribunal, as the three of them would collectively come to be known. I'm just gonna speedrun through the events that happened between the Tribunal's ascension to godhood and the events of Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. And even when skipping through certain events, it's still gonna take a while for us to talk about ESO. And the reason why I'm not going through these events in the order of the timeline is because I want to compare what this story was before the additions added by ESO's Clockwork City and what it became after them. So I'm gonna go through all the important events that led up to Elder Scrolls 3, the events of that game, and then I will actually talk about ESO's Clockwork City, which actually happened before the events of Elder Scrolls 3. I know, you clicked on a video about ESO and ESO doesn't come up until half an hour into the actual video. But I feel like if I were to just present the events in the order of the timeline, the whole different perspective thing added by ESO's story would mostly be missed. And if I were to focus mostly on ESO's story, then there would be no comparison point to what this story actually was before the Clockwork DLC was added. Also, you wouldn't have any idea what the whole Dreamer thing was unless you already knew about it.
That's right! Who do you think you are? I am!
So I'm glad we got that one covered. So after the Tribunal's ascension into divinity, they established their own dominion over Morrowind, and they, along with the Dark Elves, expanded all over the province and resettled many cities of the now non-existing Dwemer. They even built the capital of their nation, Mournhold, on top of some old Dwemer ruins known as Bamzam's End, or at least I hope that's how they're pronounced. And it is in those ruins that Sothasil began to create his Clockwork City. And it was to be a new plane of existence that was both unrestricted by mortal restrictions, such as transience and illogicality, and also it was to be unaffected by Daedric corruption.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
This project was completed sometime later during that same era. By the way, we're around the beginning of the Second Era by the time this is happening. Sothasil would also lead the Dunmer people through the Fourscore War with his magic, thus allowing Morrowind to keep some autonomy from the Second Cyrodiilic Empire, which allowed the country to maintain order after the Empire collapsed and the Three Banners War began. During the Three Banners War, the events of ESO coming, but we will talk about them later. Now, at the same time as the events of the Fourscore War were happening, a certain Khajiit Mad King was told a sad story by an unknown bard, which led to him summoning Molag Bal to destroy the Wood Elf settlement of Gilvar Dele.
Oh shit! I know that, bitch!
I'm just so happy with the way this video is turning out. This video is the best possible bridge to connect Vigilant with Glenmoriel and Unslat. Many of the concepts I mentioned here are gonna be coming very handy when we're talking about those mods, so that's a big W for me. Anyway, after the destruction of Gilvar Dele, Sothasil decided, after being pushed to do so by Almalexia, to break a deal with the Daedra to limit their invasions on Tamriel.
Daedric princes are not supposed to meddle in our affairs. My companion thought he had dealt with that threat.
The deal was struck in Cold Harbor, and under it, Molag Bal, Boethia, Azura, Hersin, Hermeus Mora, Malakath, Sheogorath, and Mehrunes Dagon all agreed to never again set foot on Tamriel at the request of every commoner, choosing only to respond to intermediaries such as witches and psyches. We still don't know what Sothasil told them or gave them to accept this deal. Not that it really mattered anyway, as during the same era, a Dark Elf witch summoned Mehrunes Dagon on the city of Mournhold. The invasion was repelled by Sothasil and Almalexia, but the city was destroyed and Almalexia only survived because Sothasil saved her. Which is very interesting for several reasons. Centuries passed and the tribunal would annually visit the Heart to restore their power, as that was the ultimate source of their divinity. However, on the year 882 of the Second Era, Dagoth Ur and his house woke up and stopped the tribunal from renewing their power. A long and awkward time period ensued where the tribunal would just keep going to the Red Mountain to try and fight off Dagoth Ur and get their power back, but each and every time he would kick their asses out of the Heart Chamber. And on the year 417 of the Third Era, Dagoth Ur even stole 2 of the 3 tools of Kagranak, which the tribunal used to take power from the Heart. And this happened after a failed attempt by Sothasil and Almalexia to use the Heart to drive him back. When haywire, the tribunal then falls into disarray and weakness, meaning they're not really able to withstand the conquest of Tiber Septim. The mongrel dogs of the Empire then conquer Morrowind, and in the year 427, the Nerevarine gets out of a boat in Saint Anin as a prisoner and starts getting orders from a local half-naked cracker.
Allegedly.
Now, according to the events of the Elder Scrolls 3, the tribunal slowly changed after the prolonged waning of their powers, and Sothasil apparently lost touch with the world around him and kept isolating himself more and more in his Clockwork City, completely cutting himself off from the rest of the world and reality. The story then goes as follows. The Nerevarine kills Dagoth Ur, the Heart spawns along with him, Almalexia goes insane and kills the isolated and senile Sothasil, she then gets killed by the Nerevarine, Vivek fucks off before the rock hanging above his capital city rocks his world out, no pun intended, but also very accurate, and Azura ultimately gets her way. Also, because Sothasil is dead, the deal he struck with the rest of the Daedra no longer holds, thus Elder Scrolls Oblivion kicks in. So that's it, right? Sothasil was born, he saw his family die, he then became a god after betraying his own friend, and in a perfect twist of fate, he died isolated and betrayed, just the same way he once betrayed Nerevar back in Red Mountain. Yeah, that was the story, until the Clockwork City came out. Granted, with the power of hindsight, it was hinted every now and again that the reason for his isolation extended beyond madness, but mostly, yeah, that was it. You can argue that it's disputed whether he killed Nerevar or not, because we don't really know for sure. Well, yeah, but admittedly, at the time the Elder Scrolls 3 came out, not even the developers really knew what happened that day at the Red Mountain. They hadn't made up their mind yet. And there are some other minor details one might consider about Sothasil's story as presented in Morrowind. Famously, there was this one post about what his last words supposedly were. That post, however, was never confirmed to be canon, so we'll just have to ignore it. Then, more than a decade later, the Clockwork City came out. Now let's see what ESO added to this already pretty solid story. The Clockwork City DLC takes place sometime during the Three Banners War, a period which is also referred to as the Interregnum. And in this DLC we actually get to see the Clockwork City and talk to Set, which we couldn't do before because Almalexia killed him and then trashed the place. So to begin the DLC we need to talk to an NPC called Dagoth Ur who takes us to the ruins under Morrowind, which the Clockwork City resides in. Well, kinda. You see, the Clockwork City exists as a miniature structure on Nirn, yet it also exists on a completely different plane of reality. Quick side note, Dagoth Ur is an important character in his own right. However, all you need to know for this video to make sense is that he's a very powerful mage and he's also a friend of Sothasil's.
You've chosen to join me. Excellent. I seek a powerful Daedric artifact. It lies hidden in a distant land, a gleaming city filled with danger, curiosity, and contradiction. In such a place, diverse perspective is vital. Thus, you. A voyage that only a few have ever undertaken. We will travel to Sothasil's peculiar experiment, the Clockwork City. I have inquiries to make. You will assist me. I do. The Tribunes are not so clever that they could hide such a place from me for long. The city is quite close. and also very far away. Just the first of Sothasil's many paradoxes. If you choose to join me, be prepared for many more. There you are! Come! Here, behind the waterfall! My companion arrives at last. Now then, our journey begins in this dreary little cave. Quite a surprise, yes? Believe me, it won't be the last. We can speak freely here, but do make it brief. All this natural splendor is just tedious. The Father of Mysteries, the Clockwork God, the Tinkerer, and other such banal titles. Sothasil, or Set, is a member of the Dark Elf Tribunal. He reigns over Morrowind as the god of craft and sorcery, the wisest and most reclusive of the three.
Do you know him well?
Ha! No one truly knows Sothasil, not even his hordes of wild-eyed worshippers. I studied with him before his ascent, and even then he defied comprehension. His only true peer was Indoril Nerevar. Such a shame what happened to him.
Indoril Nerevar?
Indeed. Saint Nerevar the Captain, our king and greatest champion for a time. He died, tragically, during a journey to the heart of Red Mountain. It was all very sudden. Some believe his retainer, Dagoth Ur, struck the mortal blow. Others...
What do others think?
Some believe that Sothasil, Vivek, and Almalexia murdered Nerevar so they could take divine power for themselves. Who's to say what really happened? In any event, Sothasil emerged from the mountain even more inscrutable than before.
What do you think happened?
I think it's irrelevant. The silence of Sothasil may come from a place of grief and deep regret. It might be a side effect of his fierce obsessions, perhaps both. How he became a god is no concern of mine. I respect his knowledge, nothing more. Sothasil hides everything. But more to your point, it's not just a city. It's an incomprehensibly powerful, world-shaping device. Can't leave that sort of thing lying about, can you? Also, Almalexia worries about how it reflects on her divinity.
Who is Almalexia?
Yes, Seal's fellow tribune. A machine can be studied, and perhaps understood in time. She fears that by reducing their divinity to a machine, Sothasil lessens the mystique of their godhood. To his great credit, Seal largely ignores these concerns.
What do you hope to find in the Clockwork City?
A Daedric artifact. I take a keen interest in all such objects, but this one seems especially significant. You see, nearly everyone who searches for it winds up dead. I suspect that someone or something hid this artifact away in the Clockwork City.
So we go downstairs to enter the Clockwork City, and along with the Devade Fear, the player attempts to enter the realm, but then we are sabotaged and we have to fight our way out.
What? This is not the Brass Fortress. Someone diverted our passage. Audacious, but foolhardy. When I find them, wait. I feel cold. Back, creature! My shadow! My power! Don't let it escape!
There is a side plot about a dark force invading the Clockwork City and stealing people's shadows, and I'm just gonna hit you with the cold water right now. If the whole darkness and shadows thing didn't hit the alarm bells of your brain, it's nocturnal. And here are some of the minor details that the Clockwork City added to the existing story. It explained a lot of the technicalities about the layout of the city and how Set was able to get water and breathable air through the walls of regulation. Just some minor details that help paint a clearer picture. It also introduced the concept that there was a social structure in the Clockwork City. Above all in this hierarchy was Sothasil, followed by the Clockwork Apostles, who were his servants. And they are followed by the Auxiliary, who exist to do the lesser jobs such as agriculture and trade, just to keep the place running. And then there's the Tarnished. They are people who don't have a sponsorship to get in the Clockwork City, or members of the Auxiliary group that lost everything and were left destitute. There are also the Exodromals, who are basically newcomers who come from outside the Clockwork City.
We record what happens everywhere. Honestly, I don't know how you Exodromals do without. You lose so much in Tamriel. Knowledge, memories, and you must argue incessantly. Everything that happens here is fact.
Here I also want to throw a pet theory of mine, just for good measure, since you know, I can only keep my mouth shut for so long. You see, there are a number of ways to access the Clockwork City. There's a ring that can take you there directly, you can go there through the underground passage system we just used, or you can end up there through random luck alone, a la backroom style. And what I mean by that is that many people end up there by accident while traveling through different realms, or while experimenting with magic. There is a way to get out of the Clockwork City right through the Basilica, which is the big structure in the middle, but the apostles never tell anyone about it. And keep in mind, even the most literate people in Tamriel doubt the city's existence. If you start excavating archaeologists in the region and send them back to the research institute, most people reply to them with a big fat WTF, what am I looking at?
I'm not leaving until you take me to that portal.
What? There's no portal. There is no way home.
I'll get the truth out of you, one way or another.
Threats of bodily harm will be met with detainment. Please cease and desist.
Fetch this. I'll find that portal myself.
So why the secrecy? Why do the apostles not let anyone escape the city? And why is the city so relatively unknown? Well, two theories. Theory number one. The apostles view one's arrival to the Clockwork City as a blessing ordained by their god, and therefore see no reason to give one the way out, even if they wish so, which has left the city incredibly isolated, since if you're not powerful enough to carve your own portal out like Fear, you're probably stuck there indefinitely. And second theory, and if you ask me this is the more interesting one, remember what Fear said about Al-Malek's idea that knowledge of the city can undermine the mysticism associated with the Tribunal's divinity? Well, what if it's not just her? What if the apostles think the same? Or they just don't want people like adventurers and random researchers flocking their way into the city and undermining the mysticism associated with it? That's a nice theory, I think. Bubblegum for thought, if anything. But it also helps to conceptualize the themes of fiction and divinity which will come up at the end. Okay, so I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of the main quest, as a lot of it is just filler and Sothasil doesn't show up until the last two quests anyway, so I'm just gonna speedrun the plot a little bit and elaborate only when necessary. So we meet a bunch of other recurring characters from other ESO quest lines, and together we are told to investigate the strange disappearances of a number of outsiders to get sponsorship into the Clockwork City. And this is told to us by one of Set's apostles named Varuni. After becoming a rat and digging around, we found out that a man by the name of Constable Bolton was kidnapping them and throwing them down a hatch. We call him out on his bullshit after saving some of the people he got thrown out, he gets arrested, and we get a membership.
Dreaming. Torchbugs. Overturned jar.
Sponsorship confirmed and archived. The light of knowledge, Sothasil, welcomes you to the Brass Fortress. Go forth and create.
We then meet Fear again, and he says that Sothasil has been acting kinda sussy lately.
It's Sothasil. Shortly after you and I parted company, I sought him out to discuss our Daedric artifact. I fear something is askew. His habits, his diction, the timbre of his voice, they've all changed, albeit subtly.
I don't want to bore you with the details of some lamps and a fetch quest, so I'm just gonna tell you, Sothasil was captured and this was actually his shadow. We fight back the shadow, and from there we learn that another high-ranking member of the apostles named Gustav has also been acting kinda sassy. And by that I mean he was a big traitor all along. So we go to his mansion to confront him after he made a pact with the Daedra.
Fine. I made a bargain with Clavicus Vile. I know, questionable. Just hear me out. All he wanted was a key. If I got it for him, he'd make me the ruler of Clockwork City.
Who stole the key?
Some daft talking crows. After that terrible business with the Shadow, I returned to my office to think. I arrived just in time to see one of those disgusting birds make off with the artifact. I panicked and ran here to hide.
And what about the Shadow Imposter? Did you know Sothasil had been replaced?
On my life, I did not. I wanted to heal the city, not destroy it. If I had known, I swear I never would have gone through with it. My methods were unconventional, I admit it. But you have to understand, I didn't do this for me. I did it for the city. Look around. Bloodthirsty fabricants, barren wastes, crumbling towers. He abandoned us. While he tinkers away in the Centralis, we scrape by. Eating nutriment paste and hiding from killer machines. Is that fair? Should we thank him for that? My eyes are open. The people of Clockwork City deserve better.
By the way, the skeleton key is the same one from Skyrim, so that's currently the artifact we're after. We go back, we report his death, and then we are sent to take the key back from the crows that took it. Now I gotta say, beyond expanding the whole Test 3 plot, Nocturnal's crows are probably the best thing this mod brought forth. The idea of a bunch of sentient crows organizing a feudal society and then having rivalries between their kingdoms while also adopting a code of chivalry is the kind of ESO lore that I live for.
Hail, crow friend, to my great knight of Marrow. You come to parley? What boon do you seek from the Black Feather Court? The shiniest? The great prize? Outrageous. What could you possibly offer us that rivals the luster of the magnificent lock poker? Speak quickly, speak! My knights and I must prepare for our next battle with the exarchs of Dross!
I'm not sure if they were first introduced in the Clockwork City, because there is a quest with them in the province of Morrowind in the base game, but they honestly provide some of the sauciest comedic relief I have ever seen. These things became so popular in fact that they even added a pet banker version of them as an assistant in-game. For the low price of $35.99, you can now have one of those crows flapping around you and handling your inventory for free, at no extra charge. Anyway, we do a side quest for the Black Feather Court where the final boss is a scarecrow. Well, of course it's a scarecrow, what did you expect? They give us the key and then we travel through a plane of Nocturnal to reach the Cogidum Centralis, aka where Rilser is. Now you might be wondering, if Sothasil is a god that can bargain with the Daedra and tell them to back off as he wishes, how did he got captured by Nocturnal so easily? Well, the answer to that question is that he did know she would come and he knew what course of action to take to defeat her.
Wait, I remember. Lord Sid taught me a spell long ago. He said it would guide me through the darkness one day. I couldn't find a use for it then. But now... Yes, he said that logic and wisdom would part the shadows of doubt. It worked! How could he have known? Never mind. Meet me at the entrance to the Cogidum. We have work to do.
Not only did he teach his followers the best possible spells to defeat the shadows, he also created a program called IOS to detect possible threats. And what this program has to say changes everything we thought we knew about Sothasil, as it shows us what he thought of as danger long before he was killed by Amalexia.
I am Ios, the Automata Incarnum Overseer System. Master Seal created me to maintain and supervise the substrata operations of Clockwork City. This partition can provide answers to Class 7 queries only. Thank you for your understanding.
Your master is in danger. Let us through so we can help him.
Assessing threats to Master Seal.
Dreaming. Open window. Sunlight through glass.
Threat analysis prepared. Prospect Numidium. Negative. Prospect Almalexia. Negative. Prospect Erasure. Negative. No existential threat detected.
How did they know?
You see, Sothasil knew about the events of Morrowind from the beginning. He was never mad, he never lost touch with reality, and if anything, he was just ahead of the curve.
I'm just ahead of the curve.
Where are they? Now the question becomes, how did he know this? Well, I want to let him explain that after we save him. I have to unload for a minute. This entire questline is only interesting lore-wise and story-wise. Gameplay-wise, it is the easiest content imaginable. Even when fighting Sothasil's shadow to free a god, you can probably press R and watch the shadow despawn, but I digress.
Fear? Where did you... What are you doing?
Never mind where I came from. I'm keeping Seal alive, you ungrateful shrew. We can't let the shadow escape.
Just hurry. I can't hold the light for long.
Even now, at the end, you bicker. How predictably mortal.
Here, Nocturnal!
Why do you struggle so? Do you not see that it's hopeless? Sleep now. Give in to the dark.
I can't hold it much longer. Get up, comrade. You have to turn the skeleton key, now!
I will not yield. Go, friend. Do as Fear says. Unlock the throne. Free Sothasil!
city shall bear your weight no longer. Be gone.
You achieved nothing, little godling. The Triad looms upon Somerset shores. All that is shall be ours.
Well done, my friend. Oh, enough theatrics, Luciana. On your feet. Luciana?
We should return to the surface. This is no place for mortals. The prisoner. At last. You are early. Or perhaps late. It makes little difference. I'm glad you've come. Tamriel owes you a debt. Restored, yes. I reclaimed my shadow, and with it, knowledge of what transpired and what's to come. But those calculations will keep. I owe you a boon. Service, like all equations, demands precise reciprocity. I wonder, what would you ask of me?
What about the key?
Clever. At another time, in another place, I would gladly part with it. In truth, I have no interest in Daedric baubles. Unfortunately, the Shadow Queen still lurks on our threshold. I must send this key away, farther than your feet can carry you.
Here you can either save the Apostle, or you can take more power. As Sothasil puts it, it doesn't really matter.
Luciana will die. If not here and now, then elsewhere and later. I can delay her death if you wish, but to what end? Consider carefully. Luciana means a great deal to me, but grief cannot be avoided, only deferred. Strange. I spent lifetimes here in the world of tangible forms, but each time I emerge from the throne, it's like I'm seeing it for the first time. Broken, impoverished, beautiful. Thank you both for coming.
Of course, old friend. You seem troubled. More troubled than usual, I mean.
Perceptive, as always. I do not wish to diminish your achievement, but Nocturnal's defeat here will be short-lived. What's more, she does not act alone. A third enemy looms at the edge of my sight. Their covetous eyes are now fixed on the Somerset Isles.
Then we should inform the rest of the Sijiks. They'll need to prepare.
I will inform them personally. I have a separate task for you, Dagoth. Take the skeleton key. Keep it hidden for as long as you can. I trust that this task pleases you. After all, your love of such trinkets is what brought you here in the first place.
Sometimes I wonder if you see too much. I will keep it safe.
Farewell, Dagoth Ur. We will not meet again. I haven't visited this memorial for centuries, but even I need reminders every now and again.
Now, for every analysis video I make, there is always that one moment that makes me say, yeah, there's a video worth making here. And this dialogue between what Seth calls the prisoner and himself was exactly that moment for me.
Do you like this place? It took me the better part of a decade to perfect it. Every stone and flower tells a story. Tales of how things were, how they ought to be. I thought about destroying it on more than one occasion. I'm glad I didn't.
I have questions.
I know. Ask and I will answer truthfully. Just know that the truth often fails to satisfy.
Who are you really?
You expect something grand, but I promised you the truth. I am only what time and circumstance made me. Son of a lost house, friend to a fallen king. Some will tell you that we are the product of our choices. I've never found that to be the case.
But you're supposed to be a god, right?
I am whatever the people need me to be. A guardian, an oppressor. For some, too distant. For others, too meddlesome. I am the canvas upon which they paint their dreams and resentments, a vessel for their hopes and doubts, a mirror, nothing more.
If you believe that, why call yourself a god?
I don't. But my companions, Vivek and Almalexia, see their divinity as essential. Godhood brings them joy and purpose. They find meaning in the theatrical. Who am I to deprive them of that?
What are your feelings about Almalexia?
Almalexia defies symbol analysis. I doubt she could even describe herself accurately. To understand Almalexia, you must first understand the value of fiction. Vivek fancies himself the poet, but in truth, AM is the greatest storyteller.
How so?
Vivek knows the boundaries that separate fact from fiction. He knows them so well that he's learned how to break them. He exists inside his verse, but recognizes the lies, the contradictions. He both does and does not believe his own tales.
How is Almalexia different?
She believes her tales implicitly, as does everyone else. Her capacity for deception appears limitless. She sows lies like a master gardener sows seeds, and the harvest of trust and adulation is breathtaking in scope.
Does that bother you?
Not in the slightest. As I said, we are, all of us, bound by our nature. Almalexia does what she does because she cannot do otherwise. It will not end well. But then, even the best endings rarely bring joy.
What about Vivek?
Vivek is my brother. He knows my struggles and I know his. That knowledge makes our relationship complicated. To truly know someone is as much a curse as it is a blessing.
What are his struggles?
Regret. We are bound by that at least. He also suffers a kind of enslavement. Not unlike my own, in fact. Beauty holds the keys to his shackles. Beauty and a love of great works, great heights. His appetites are insatiable, thus his despair.
What do you mean despair?
Yes, a poet's despair. Vivek craves writable freedom, the death of all limits and restrictions. He wishes to be all things at all times. Every race, every gender, every hero, both divine and finite. But in the end, he can only be Vivek.
And that's not enough?
Not even remotely.
What exactly is the Clockwork City?
I sometimes ask myself the same thing. May I confess something to you? I suffer from a peculiar ailment. Shall I describe it? I bear the cruel weight of certainty. Total, absolute, relentless certainty. People rarely comprehend the luxury of doubt, the freedom that comes with indecision. I envy you.
Didn't you just say that you questioned whether the city was worth the effort?
Indeed. But such questions are flaccid. Cursory indulgences that come and go in an instant. The truth is that my actions, both good and evil, are inevitable. Locked in time. Determined by chains of action and consequence.
So you were forced to build the Clockwork City?
Compelled. This city serves a noble goal. The redemption of Tamriel. The unification of competing forces. The destruction of the Daedra. Unfortunately, it is an endeavor built upon a lattice of corpses. Betrayal, untold horrors. Do you understand? Good. I pray you never do. Maybe the word I covet above all others. Hold to that word, my friend, and never let go. Then I pity you.
What did you want to talk about?
I have preparations make outside my clockwork realm. You must stay vigilant. Take heed of any Daedric incursions and stand ready to fight. The prisoner wields great power, making reality of metaphor. We will need you before the end.
Why do you call me the prisoner?
A fool's hope, perhaps. I should explain. Look around you. All of this exists because it must exist. I stand here, in this place, in this moment, not because I wish to, but because I have to. A result of action and consequence.
So, wouldn't that make you the prisoner?
Clever, but incorrect. The prisoner must apprehend two critical insights. First, they must face the reality of their imprisonment. They must see the determinative walls, the chains of causality that bind them to their course.
You haven't done that?
I have, but I fall short of the second insight. The prisoner must see the door to their cell. They must gaze through the bars and perceive that which exists beyond causality, beyond time. Only then can they escape.
You don't see the doors?
I see only unsteady walls. If the people of Tamriel must exist inside this cell, I will make sure that the walls are stable, the gaps are sealed, and all who remain stay safe within it.
When I was playing through Greymoor and Blackwood, I kept feeling this constant boredom, as if I really didn't care about everything I was playing through. And I struggled to think about how that emotion is unjustified. After all, does it really matter how Mehrunes Dagon got the design for his portals, or how he developed teleport magic? We all know how the story ends, and the story ends way better than you're telling it right now, and you're not adding anything new to it. You're just taking me through a fanfare I don't care about because I've already been through all the rites. But the Clockwork series does something different. It gives that alternative perspective, and if you ask me, it does it perfectly. In Test 3, Sothasil had a grand total of one scene, in which he was already dead by the time we found him. And to this day, I keep reading articles on wikis on how he became mad and isolated, when this, and another video game I'm gonna mention soon enough, disproves this. Moreover, this DLC answers questions left unanswered, such as what definitively happened to Nerevar. You can argue that the whole regret and forgiveness thing refers to him breaking his oath to Nerevar, and using the heart to become a god and not necessarily killing him. And if this whole place hasn't proven otherwise, remember those archaeologies I mentioned earlier? Well, the second rarest one is something called an elegiac vessel. Elegiac? Elegiac?
Elegiac.
An elegiac vessel, which reads, is this a pot or a vase? Or an urn of some kind? I've never seen such an oddly shaped vessel. It appears to be some kind of strange, straight-edged stone. Something artificial, no doubt. It's almost like a craftsman built it on layers, one on top of another. And what's inside? Ronald's tear flowers. Perfectly preserved too. And the note in it simply says, forgive me. How perplexing. I bet this would fetch a king's ransom in Vardenfell.
So that was a fucking lie.
If this hasn't convinced you yet, then I don't know, forgive me too, I guess. This DLC also answers the whole skin color thing that Tribunal had going for them. Almalexia fancied herself the master of fiction, thus she embraced the mysticism she got when keeping the Chimera skin. Vivek could tell fiction from reality, and thus he was able to play with both, yet he never could achieve a high enough level of chimp to become both. And so he kept both forms. And Sothasil? Sothasil was the only one to embrace reality. Lastly, this DLC finally answers the whole why is the main character always a prisoner question. See, it is hinted that Elder Scrolls protagonists from Morrowind onwards are capable of acting in ways outside the chains of causality as laid out by the dream. They have, in a sense, the power of chimp, which is why they are ultimately a prisoner. I'm sorry, I can't. This is the most meta way a developer could possibly come up with to say, yeah, you're an actual player, not an NPC, bro. Wanna get off and touch some grass? I wanna move on and talk about what happened to the Clockwork City after the events of Morrowind. But before I do that, I just wanna place a small mental note here which reads, this all comes up when we talk about Glen Moriel, so don't forget any of this. Now that I made sure this would definitely not come up again, what happened to the Clockwork City after the events of Morrowind? Well, to learn that we have to scrape the bottom of the barrel and talk about another offshoot Elder Scrolls game. The Elder Scrolls Legends. In that game, we learned that when the Tribunal lost access to the heart of Lord Khan, Sothasil locked himself in the chambers of the Clockwork City and began working on a new heart which he could use to power his Clockwork City eternally. Of course, he also prepared himself for Malexia's attack, and it is here that we actually get the true last words he ever spoke.
This day has appeared in all my simulations. The end. My dear friend Almalexia has come to kill me. Now everything depends on my calculations being correct. My machines need 22 minutes to seal the chamber of Lorcan, so that is how long I must live. I have done it. I die. But what is death? A natural function. The chamber is sealed, the work begun. It will take approximately 207 years. But what is that? A rounding error. The new heart of Lorcan will be completed. And it will power my city for all eternity.
After 207 years passed, which is coincidentally the exact same time as the events of Skyrim are taking place, the city began to once again sprout to life after more than 2 centuries of being slowly abandoned and succumbing to decay. Some apostles did stay hoping for a miracle, bound to their faith of their long-dead god, and a miracle did come for them. After the heart got activated, one of Sotasil's old pupils then tried to harness the power of the heart and become a god in their own right, just like their master did. But a forgotten hero, aka the player, stopped him and either destroyed the heart or gave himself to it to continue to power the city. We don't know which one happened for sure, but given the track record of the guy who made the heart, I think this won't be the last time we'll see the Clockwork City. Or maybe it will be, or maybe it will be. Just keep your expectations low. We still have another decade until 6 comes out. There are definitely other short stories worth being told here. The side quests in this zone are also kinda out there too, if I'm being honest. Also, 3 words. Clockwork City Drip. What do you think of it? I think it looks fresh AF. I wanna again apologize for the time this video took to come out. Hopefully, in the future, I will make up my mind about what video I wanna actually make, thus avoiding any spontaneous script burning. And I do hope we get some more interesting storylines from ESO. As I said before, I'm not here to bash the game. And I don't know how you can screw up Hermaeus Mora, to be honest. But, you never know with these developers, do you?
ESO fam represent!
I'm hurt bad.
Thank you all for watching, and have a great day.
In all honesty, I've always leaned towards a Templar myself. I simply love the lifesteal effect of jabs. It is fucking amazing. I can't find solid information, and I haven't even played ESO in well over a year, Nerevar, but it looks as if jabs were fucking nerfed. Is this how you honor the 6th house and the tribe unmourned?